Cassandra Nova is available in Deadpool's Diner. I have Cassandra Nova, and I spent hours trying to figure out what the best Cassandra Nova deck is in Marvel Snap. When I first saw Cassandra Nova, my instinct was that I wanted to put her in the Ravonna shell. Now, don't worry, this is not what the final deck is. I'm just taking you through my thought process so you can understand why I ended up with the deck that I ended up with. This was the first version I built. I was like, okay, we have Cassandra Nova, we have Absorbing Man, and Absorbing Man with Ravonna means that I can also do something like Final Turn Sage plus Absorbing Man. That's very powerful too. What I found was that this build was a little bit too front-facing. There wasn't a lot of ways for me to interact with what my opponent was doing, so if what they were doing was stronger than what I was doing, I was just gonna lose. And most of that is down to not having Shang-Chi in it, and not having really any other methods of interacting with what your opponent is trying to do. When you did what you wanted to do, i.e. Cassandra Nova into Absorbing Man against an Arishem deck, yeah, that's obviously like really, really good, but that's not necessarily enough of a reason to build around that, because there are still many decks in the metagame that are not playing Nova or are not playing Arishem and thus are not amazing Nova targets. Specifically, Absorbing Man was a card that I noticed stood out as a card that I liked some of the time and didn't like some other of the time. So my next build, I tried to lean a little bit further into Absorbing Man and see if we could just play a tempo style deck where we weren't investing in Sage, because Sage, Absorbing Man, sort of conflicted with our desire to be a NovaHawk on the final turn kind of deck. This was version 2, the version that is looking to aim a little bit further at being a good Absorbing Man deck. I thought maybe I wanted a way to curve Absorbing Man profitably. So I have a Black Widow in there, so we can go Black Widow Absorbing Man as a separate thing that allows us to do a lot of disruptive things in a deck like this. One of the things that I didn't like about the previous version was that Absorbing Man was only ever really that good when you were copying either Cassandra Nova or something like Sage on the final turn of the game. With this version, we had another good draw in it, but what I found was ultimately Absorbing Man just wasn't pulling its weight at all. And so you'll see in the final version, he ended up just leaving the deck entirely. This is the version that I had by far the most success with. What you'll see is that there's an additional Hope Summer's doing a lot of work in here. You'll see Nocturne back in. You'll see Shang-Chi back in. And the reason I wanted to go through all of this and talk about why I've made the choices that I've made here is because I felt like if I just started off with this deck, you guys would look at me and say, Cam, you didn't even try. You just put the best cards in the best shell. But here's the thing, I did try. I tried really hard to lean into Cassandra Nova more, and it wasn't worth doing. Because against Arishem, she's just gonna win you the game anyway. You are a Cassandra Nova NovaHawk deck, you're gonna dominate that stuff. You don't need to double down on that. And against non-Arishem, you really just want her to be a 3/7. That's all you're interested in her being, is a card that you play on turn 3 and she has 7 power. You're very okay with that. So what that means is this is just a generically fairly strong card that you are able to mix into this shell. Now, what you'll notice, however, about this shell is that it is not one of the 3 iterations of the Thena shell that I had on my most recent tier list. I would say that the NovaHawk build was very clearly 4th place. However, I do think Cassandra Nova meaningfully changes that, because now, when I queue into an Arishem deck, it's not, oh, I feel like we're having a game. It's, I feel like I can bully you. I feel like I'm bully snapping Arishem gamers with this deck. That's a really big deal. Like, obviously it's a big deal. Cassandra Nova is better into Arishem than NovaHawk is. I cannot stress that enough. Cassandra Nova is better than NovaHawk into Arishem. She is, in my opinion, the best card into Arishem you could possibly play. That's a really big deal, and because she's so good, it means you don't need to overinvest in her. You don't need to be an Absorbing Man deck. And by the same token, the Ravonna stuff, you don't need to overinvest in NovaHawk. You can just be a normal deck that has this stuff. You don't need to be a Mystique deck. You don't need to be an Absorbing Man deck. You don't need to double up the NovaHawk. You don't need to double up the Nova. You can just play a normal game, and then against Arishem, having one of them will swing the match in your favor. Having both of them will lock your opponent out of the game. And that is why this deck makes sense right now. I did also want to give a special shout out to Hope Summers, who I think is honestly the MVP of this deck. having extra energy is so completely incredible. Hope Summers might be the strongest card in this entire deck. Now, I know people are going to ask about Copycat. Copycat was pretty good, but I think this is the kind of card where you need a little bit more time to figure out if she's actually optimal in this spot. If you do not have Copycat, but you do have everything else, please feel free to replace Copycat with whatever you want. I'm just running her because I wanted to try the new card as well, and she was not bad enough for me to cut, and very often quite solid. Copycat also gets some benefit from being in a rock shell because she steals the ability of the bottom card of the deck, but when you start shuffling rocks in, suddenly the bottom card of the deck becomes a different thing, meaning they might actually draw the card that you stole the ability of. Kitty Pryde remains core in these Thena Angela midrange shells, and while there is something in my brain wondering if there is a better shell for Nova Darkhawk, I actually tried some Surfer stuff as well, but I found this to be a little bit more comfortable. I do think that right now, Thena Angela is where I want to go for this style of deck. It's frustrating to me that we aren't able to get weird with it, right? I enjoyed being able to be a Iron Man Mystique deck to some degree, but right now, I just don't think that's the right way to approach it. I think we need to focus more on having the cards that move, not getting Doc-Ocked, and not getting leeched. And because of that, we end up being a little bit less vulnerable to a lot of the things that Arishem would normally do to beat us. And Kitty Pryde is an important part of that package, which has just become a generically strong mid-range core. Korg puts rocks in your opponent's deck. You are scaling off of that with Cassandra Nova, you are scaling off of that with Darkhawk, and of course you are even, to some degree, benefiting from that with Copycat. I would go about as far as saying Athena is the best scaling 2-drop in the game. I don't think that's really controversial. She is the 2-drop that most rewards you for building around her. One tip I would have is make sure you don't get her to 10 before the final turn of the game. It can be very easy to make this card Shang-Chi-able in a deck like this. You really do want to avoid that. You honestly do, because this card getting Shang-Chi'd is a big problem, and one of the major advantages that this card has is that, let's say you want to play 3 cards on the final turn of the game, they can't Shang-Chi it, it ends up being 10 power in a lane that otherwise they would be able to Shang-Chi because it procs at the end of turns. Make sure this card is not Shang-Chi-able. Please do think about that in any matchup where your opponent is liable to have Shang-Chi, and for the record, Shang-Chi right now, I would guess is a roughly 60% play rate card, so it's going to be a lot of matchups where you have to think about this. Angela is sort of a ride-along card. I actually think it's very reasonable for you to say, I would like to cut Angela for something else, but I do think that it's important in decks like this to have a critical mass of early game plays, and having 2-cost cards that are good is a really big deal. There aren't all that many of them, right? So, maybe you could replace Angela for White Widow. I don't really see a problem with that. That seems perfectly acceptable to me. But once you get below that, you're suddenly looking at generally much worse cards. Angela's synergy with Kitty Pryde is one of the major reasons why this card is good. And I think that, generally speaking, this will outperform anything you replace it with, even if she is no longer the star of these types of decks. Jeff is a little bit of a flex, but you remember when I talked about the specifics of having a bunch of movers against Doc-Ock and having a bunch of 2-drops so that your curve made a little more sense? Jeff fills both of those roles, and I think right now it's very hard for me to want to take a deck that's meant to beat Arishem and not play Jeff and Nocturne in it because of the ways they insulate you from Dr. Octopus, which is how that matchup typically flips on its head. This card is usually just a 3/7 if you play it early, and it's not very good if you play it much later, unless you've done a real lot of work putting cards in your opponent's deck, but most of the time she's a 3/7 on turn 3. And that is perfectly acceptable. I think people think a lot too much about the backside of this card. The backside of this card is usually worth 1 or 2 points. It's not really a big deal. The front side of this card is what matters. Against Arishem, obviously, she's like a 319, which is completely ridiculous. You are very interested in having a 319 in your deck. That's a really good thing to have. Against non-Arishem decks, she's just good enough for you to play anyway. And I think that many people will look at this card and say, it's only for Arishem, and to a degree that is true, but the fact that the downside risk on it is this is Gladiator-sized most of the time, right? A 3/7 that maybe has 1 or 2 points of additional value, yeah, that's Gladiator, right? And you are very, very happy to be playing a card like Gladiator. If Gladiator had a text on it that said, you beat Arishem more, you'd play a lot more Gladiator. That's effectively how I would think about Cassandra Nova right now. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Rock Slide puts rocks in your opponent's deck that synergizes with your Cassandra Nova, your Darkhawk, and even to some degree your Copycat, as Copycat steals the bottom card of the deck and the rocks get shuffled in, which means that they might draw the card that you stole the ability from. Hope Summers is so damn good in this deck. This is a deck that is really averse to playing out Darkhawk on turn 5. Whether that be because it is not a deck that is mystiquing it, or because you are trying to avoid getting Shang-Chi'd or Rogue, you are typically very averse to actually doing that. Hope Summers is what smooths your curve out to make it possible that you play that card later in the game after it cannot be interacted with. A lot of the time also, Hope Summers is enabling you to have extra energy, so you can keep proccing Thena while you do this as well. I honestly think that she is one of the most irreplaceable cards in an archetype like this. It hasn't always been true, but right now, I think that she's just the best way for a deck like this to cheat energy, and when I have her on the board, I feel so much more confident in my game plans. This card was mostly pretty good. I have nothing against Copycat, per se, but I do think that there may be something to the idea that she ends up pretty replaceable. I do think, having played her for all of this time, I am generally happier with Copycat than any 3-drop but Nocturne. That's sort of where my head is at right now. I think that when I was looking at Copycat originally, I was like, okay, is this card going to be better than Nocturne? Probably not. But it might end up being better than like every other 3-drop, right? This might end up being like the second best in slot 3-drop. I've had a lot of success with this card. Like, I think she honestly is pretty good. However, I do also think that you're going to want to see about replacing her, right? If you take this card out and run Red Guardian, I'm not really sure you'd notice an appreciable difference. And I think that that really speaks to her level of strength. I think that this card could end up being one of those cards that you really regret not running because you're going to see a lot of people running it in decks. But at the same time, it could be one of those cards that you don't regret skipping because you can replace it a lot. The closest comparison I do have to it is Nocturne, but that does feel like I'm putting it a bit high. This is not the greatest metagame for this card, but honestly, I came away from it mostly saying, you know what? If it's not doing anything, that's fine. If it's taking anything relevant, that's also fine. The 3/5 body is just such a big deal. Because if this card were 3/4, I don't think it would be playable. But at 3/5, yeah, this is a legitimate card, and I'm never all that sad seeing her. I've gotten some bad rolls on her. Kitty Pryde, Hobgoblin, not great. But those bad rolls have been mostly totally outruled by the good ones. Like, I've gotten a Viper against a Clog deck, or, you know, even a Nocturne. It's just like, oh, that's second Nocturne. I'm very happy to have that, right? And when your mid-roll is like second Nocturne, I think it becomes clear that this card is actually going to be pretty good for you a decent amount of the time. I've been happy with her, but as always, I would recommend that you wait a little bit to figure out if you're going to buy her. Nocturne is crucial for decks like this. We've talked about how the movers are your sort of Doc-Ock prophylactic, and that remains true. Nocturne also is able to deal with weird locations, although I will say I did feel like this deck was pretty damn good at not being screwed by locations, honestly, because of the fact that it had Nocturne, it had Jeff. There's just so many ways for this deck to end up not being screwed by locations. You're just pretty well-rounded when it comes down to it. Nocturne is great. The best 3-drop in the game. I think arguably better than Jeff, in my opinion, in terms of just, I want this card in almost every deck I play. I'm a huge fan of this card. She will betray you some amount of the time, and you will be mad at her, but that should not stop you from playing her, and especially in a deck in a metagame like this. I was frustrated to realize that I had to put Shang-Chi in this deck, because it represented making very few changes from what was already pretty clearly a really good deck, and I didn't want that to be true. I wanted to be rewarded for playing Absorbing Man and Black Widow and really investing into Cassandra Nova, but ultimately I found that I wasn't. I simply wasn't rewarded in the same way, and having the interaction of a Shang-Chi is invaluable in a metagame like this that is dominated by, you know, people playing Darkhawk right now, people playing Blob, people playing Mockingbird, people playing Sasquatch. Those are overwhelmingly the most common threats or endgame threats that you're going to see in the game right now. Shang-Chi deals with all of them. He is the man right now. This is Marvel Shang-Chi. He is what the game is about. Darkhawk was almost bad enough that I cut him. Like, I didn't, But this guy really, like, because we just talked about Shang-Chi, right? Like, because there's so much Shang-Chi everywhere, you often just don't want to play this guy, and that's really awkward, right? This is part of why I hated Mystique with him, because, again, there's so much Shang-Chi everywhere. You play Darkhawk on 5, you go to Mystique, and it gets blown up, and it's like, okay, I guess I die, right? And so Darkhawk ended up being like, all the rest of this stuff is really good. Darkhawk ended up being at its best when I was able to do stuff with Hope Summers and not have to worry about it, right? One thing that I think people will find is pretty predictable is I'm going to try to beat Darkhawk plus a Kitty Pryde, right? And the way you beat Darkhawk plus Kitty on the final turn of the game is by beating Kitty in all 3 lanes. And so if you're able to do that, this deck is pretty telegraphed on the final turn of the game, which is a problem. However, Hope Summers really alleviates that issue. So basically, Darkhawk, pretty good, but a victim of Shang-Chi. And because of that, you end up wanting to play it on 6, but when you play it on 6, you end up a little more predictable unless you have the extra energy from Hope Summers. All right, y'all, thank you so much for making it to the end of that video. Of course, we're going to jump into some gameplay from here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I truly appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe. I, of course, have been KM Best. You have been phenomenal. Let's get into the gameplay. Okay, but it's not an Arishem gamer. We're not lucky like that. Cassandra Nova. That's a 3/7. I see. Well, fuck. All right, so not the greatest outcome for Copycat that time. A little less than ideal right there. It's okay. It's okay. I swear. It's fine. It's actually okay here. It really isn't. It's really not okay. Can't be Galactus because you play Debris. Doesn't seem likely to me. We're putting the Darkhawk in the middle so we can't get shanged, by the way. That's like our whole thing here. Yeah, that didn't go well for us. I'm thinking really hard about Cannonball Titania. We know Titania's on the bottom of the deck. So it's just Cannonball, which means it's just... Sentry SK. See, like, I'm not really sure how much I have to worry about. But if it happens, it happens. They have the 18 they need to make this happen. I think they have the 18 they need to make this happen. I think that's just the world I have to live in. Actually, we don't even lose to Century SK. That is the thing we were thinking about, yeah. But the other card is Titania. However, we played 2 cards for exactly this purpose. This is exactly the fucking thing I was thinking about, chat. The Bub's going crazy for this one, chat. Kind of irrelevant. Interesting with Noor Dimension. Interesting that they don't get She-Hulk, I think is the most interesting thing. That is not a problem for me the way it is for other decks. Copycat doesn't look like a real card so far. She's the one I'm just happy with. She's never bad. Jin. So they have 3 cards in hand. What's her face is a 1/6. All right, I'm not getting what's happening here. I'm not grasping it. I'm not grasping how I'm losing it. I'm sure it's possible, but I'm not getting it. Gwenpool. Hydra Bob, alright. Jin, but we know their She-Hulk isn't real. The real question is, what lane are they seriously targeting? I also imagine left in mid. We're dead, right? Ooh! We're not dead. Let's go, Jin. Anything? I don't think the location's really dictated anything there. Honestly. I imagine I am supposed to do this. Seems pretty likely to me. Did you Nova yet since she bubbed your vibes? I have her in the deck. How good would Cosmo be in the deck as protection? It would have to be over Copycat, unfortunately. See, that doesn't really matter. Like, that's cool and all, but it's not impactful. We still get all of this energy. Holy shit. That's scary. That's horrifying. Well, Cassandra Nova's pretty fucking big. Even on turn 6, it turns out she's big as a motherfucker. Arishem, woo! I think that's gonna be the next thing I do. Cosmo. Arishem. Wait, this Cosmo protects my Darkhawk. Holy shit. Too late. Save for last turn? I do want to make sure I don't get, like, fucked by this Nocturne. Hello, Legion. Oh, it's a bit late for that. You may go. You may go. No. I already got what I needed at a diner. Why would I do anything else? I wouldn't call it an honest 50-50. We did what we had to. Like, I don't know. I thought about playing the Darkhawk in the other lane. I thought about playing the Darkhawk in the lane and winning. Is what it is. Nerfed Angela. Whoa. You just play a gazillion stats and then cock cabinet. I know. Holy fuck. Okay, I'm actually kind of scared now. Because, like, they have tech cards, right? I get fucking Shadow Kinged is the issue. Okay, we win. Arishem? No way. Never. Ooh, turn 1 Cassandra Nova. Yeah, I mean... I don't know if it's good. It's the turn 1 Cassandra Nova, though. It's pretty cool. Whoa, that's a lot of cards. Angela, something, and a kitty? Annoying. Because it represents the fact that they have just, like, a better thing to do than me. I am playing above curve for, like, a lot of this game, though. Copycat worth, bro? I think she's quite good, but the question is she going to be better than the other options you have? Which is a different question, unfortunately. I think I lost, if I had to guess. I was trying to play around a potential Shang, but I don't think I get there. Wait. Wait! Wait! Why would they do that? Why would they do that? You win rate high, cube rate low. 2 bad 8-cuber losses to Arishem. Copycat feels good. I'm not sure she's meaningfully better than Nocturne or whatever. I think she's meaningfully better than Red Guardian. Greatest card ever made or worse than Kang. Those are the 2 options. I reject those options. I did expect them to be able to copy that Iron Man off of Mystique. But, yeah. Okay. Wonderful. You got Cassandra already? I wailed. I'm a whale. We had a whale of a time. Not the worst thing to ever happen. Let's get that Cassandra out there while she is still a 3/7. Okay. 2 cards in hand. Kitty in the middle. Rock Slide on the right. Nova on the right. That's a big Nova. I think I lost. Wait, no, I won. I played around like they would Darkhawk on the right. They didn't, but I won anyway. It was drag dump. Didn't the first play also win that? Oh, not necessarily. Looks like it, though. Looks a little clog-ish here. That's a White Widow, yeah? Yep. Look at the fucking read, baby. I want you to look at what I've done here and say, you're a fucking god, KM. I want you to look at this shit and say, KM, you're a fucking genius. God, yes. I don't get why they stay. They don't. Always makes me a little bit uncomfortable when people are like, oh, it's you. Like, I'm also streaming. Ew. Okay, they have a Nocturne. Good to know. I gather they have a Nocturne. Don't emote and snipe and snipe. This is exactly what I was trying to convey. You're right. You nailed it. That's exactly what I meant. That's a Nocturne. I am aware of this being a Nocturne. They're gonna have to move that shit, aren't they? The real question is, do I just play 2 and then hold for rock here? Do I play all? I think I play 2, leave my options open. If I play 3, I could Darkhawk Shang-Chi, but that doesn't seem like it's super likely to happen. I think I'll do the 3. Okay, remember when I said it wasn't super likely to happen? Shuffle means they often draw the newt card. Correct. Whoa, they snapped me. They shouldn't have. Nope. Nope. Dude, these blue baddies just keep morphing into each other. It's crazy. The blue baddie force. They're out here, dude. They're out here, dude. Okay. What deck plays Nocturne Chavez? The fuck? Surfer? Chat says it's Surfer. We love ourselves some blue baddies, don't we, chat? Okay. Alright, I'm confused. Could really use a Cassandra Nova in a game like this, though, right? pure hand buff. Crazy. Scary, honestly. Who knows what the hell is happening in this game? Nothing good. I love this Gwenpool. Wow. Wow. That's really nice. It really is. It truly is. So their range is anything. They could do literally anything, and I'd be like, that makes sense to me. This is a Mysterio. Holy fuck. Okay, so that's 2 of the buffs from Gwenpool on that. Nothing on the Mysterio, though. That is wild. So the question we have here is, where is the real Mysterio? Okay, I didn't want to ask that or answer that question, so I just went all right and said you never play a 10 power thing there. You just don't fucking do it. And I was right. They just never fucking do that. It is so patently insane to do that it was just like, all right, you're just not fucking playing that card over there. It is not happening. You would be kind of insane to do that. For the record, they would have won by 1 point if we'd gone left. We had 22. Purple is mid anyway? Fuck off. Listen to this fucking guy. My god. Yeah, I mean... Uh-huh. Copycat the Jeffa. Wonderful. Probably worse for them than it was for me. Cool. They were counting on that kitty. 3-5 Jeff, there you go. It is. This is my boy. Rock Slide, then Nocturne Kitty. Then I got a Damovers. Whoa, 2 cards. Holy shit. They cord me. They stature me. Illegal Weapon X Facility Gaming. What the fuck is this? Actually, illegal Weapon X Facility Gaming. What the hell? You should go to jail for that. I think I am supposed to snap this. Oh my god. He's got 2 cards in hand. It's like NovaHawk and something, right? So the question is, what is the and something and which lane is it going? Thatcher's already on the board. Let's lose 8. We're not losing 8, baby! We're winning 8! Let's go! Let's go! It was Angela Smiles. Could I describe it? Okay, sorry, chat. I got into the game, all right? You want a streamer who's excited about the game? Stop it.